Okay, this will be part three of our teaching that we're talking about the differences between the church and the nation of Israel. And I want to read from my notes again, starting talking about the different destiny. You know, there's a different destiny for the church as well as the nation of Israel, or Yasharel. Of course, there's even a destiny for the Gentiles, Gentiles being unbelievers who have never accepted the sacrifice that was paid for their salvation. And but I'm going to talk about Israel and the church in this writing right here. Israel has been given a homeland on earth with geographic boundaries as an everlasting possession. You'll find that in Genesis chapter 15, verses 18 through 21. The millennial kingdom on earth is all about Israel. And that's why we have to look in the Old Testament or the Tanakh for descriptions of life on earth during that time. Passages like Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 through 5, Isaiah chapter 35, and Isaiah chapter 65, verse 17 through 25, Ezekiel chapter 40 through 48, and Micah chapter 4, verse 1 through 8. All this tells of Israel restored to a position of preeminence among the nations of the earth, and that the promised land will be turned into a rich garden paradise where Yahuwah himself will dwell among his chosen people, just like he promised them in Ezekiel chapter 43, verse 7. Now, the difference of Israel's destiny and the church is this: the church has no home on earth. Our citizenship is in heaven, according to Philippians chapter 3, verse 20. The church millennial home is the New Jerusalem, an enormous entity that's too large to fit on earth, but will be located in earth's proximity. Revelation chapter 21. John described it coming down out of heaven after the second coming as a beautiful bride on her wedding day, nearly 1,400 miles in length, width, and height. It will be 2/3 the size of the moon and be made of pure gold and precious gems. This is the place Yahusha has been preparing for us, to which he will take us, for which he will take us, so that we might be where he is. Of course, this is mentioned in the Gospel of John chapter 14, verses 2 and 3. Even when Israel receives the new covenant, which is mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31, there will still be a temple, a Levitical priesthood, daily sacrifices for sin, periodically holy days, and other requirements. The book of Ezekiel chapter 40 through chapter 46. In the New Jerusalem, there is no temple. Revelation chapter 21, verse 22 states, and there's no additional requirements. After the second coming, only the believing remnant of Israel will be left to dwell in the promised land on earth. Together with resurrected Old Testament believers, they will constitute national Israel. At the rapture, which will take place, of course, before Daniel's 70th week or before Jacob's trouble, at the rapture, the church will depart the earth forever to take up residence in the New Jerusalem. Wow. Quite a difference between the church and the nation of Israel, or Yasharel. So that's why we're sharing and teaching these things, so because people get everything lumped into one thing and they just don't fit. Now, after the church is gone, when the rapture takes place, Paul says in Romans chapter 11, verse 25 through 27, Paul said that Israel had experienced a hardening in part until the fullness of the number of the Gentiles has come in. But after that, Israel would be saved. The word for hardening also means blinded. This is a clear indication that Yahuwah's unfinished business with Israel won't be concluded until he's finished with the church. We know he won't be finished with us until the rapture. Until then, Israel will remain at least partially blinded to the truth. just as Yahushua warned would happen to them in the Gospel of Luke chapter 19, verses 41 through 44. You can go back and read that if you like. This sentiment was echoed at the Council of Jerusalem when James or Jacob disclosed that Yahuwah would first take from the Gentiles a people for himself, the church, quote, the church, and after that he would turn to Israel. You'll find this in Acts chapter 15, verses 13 through 18. The phrase translated take from literally means to take in order to carry away from, and is another reference to the rapture. If we have time, I'll go there and read these verses. But anyway, these two passages of Scripture are not widely used in defense of a pre-trib rapture because they speak to the theology behind the church's disappearance rather than the event itself. But they are extremely helpful in putting the missing week of Daniel 9, chapter 9, verses 24 through 27 in a proper perspective. It's the remaining 7 years of Yahuwah's assignment for Israel to complete 6 tasks in preparation for the coming kingdom as outlined in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. 77s are decreed for your people and for your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and anoint the most holy place. The phrase 77 means 7 weeks of years, or 490 years. Some of these tasks were at least partially completed in the 483rd year at the time of the crucifixion. But Israel's rejection of the Messiah stopped the clock, 7 years short of totally leaving the rest undone. These 7 years are yet to be completed, but as Paul and Jacob or James both specified, the clock will not start running again until the church disappears. This is what makes knowing all about Daniel's 70th week so important to the church. It helps us to understand why the rapture can't happen during any part of it. The rapture has to take place first. The Bible is not a book of generalities, it's a book of specifics. Those last 7 years are missing and must be completed. When you read the Bible literally as intended, there's no sense in which they can be placed in the past. They are part of the future, and they're not called the tribulation, they're called Daniel's 70th week. I hope that helps you. We're going to talk more about this and get into more detail. I want to read from the book of Ephesians where Paul talked about that Yahuwah made one new man out of two, and he's making reference to the Jew and Gentile. And he says that we both, Jew and Gentile, have access by one Spirit unto the Father. And so during this time of the church age, Yahuwah is bringing both Jew and Gentile into one by one Spirit, and that is the Spirit of Mashiach. We'll talk more on this in our next video. So thanks again. Hope you're doing well, and continue to share these videos. I appreciate it, and thank you again. Shalom.